Hi everyone, Dr. Emmy from Pain Free and Fit and Walkaway Back Pain. Last week we talked about how to choose terrain while you're walking for assistive corrections in your lower back symptoms. Today we're going to be talking about the opposite, choosing terrain to challenge our body to keep our mechanical corrections, which strengthens our stability and improves lower back symptoms. Hope you enjoy. So choosing terrain to provide a challenge for your lower back mechanical symptoms is a great way to increase the strength of your stabilizing muscles. Remember, the whole idea of the Walkaway Back Pain program is to utilize walking as a self-rehab program to improve the mechanical weaknesses you have that contribute to lower back pain. Last week we talked about more passive or assistive choices with terrain. When you have an acute exacerbation of your back pain, you don't have as much energy. Today we're going to be talking about how to choose terrain based on your mechanics so you can actually use this to use more energy to increase the strength of those stabilizing muscles. So let's take an example of a lateral lower back symptom first. Let's say my back pain is aggravated more leaning to the right, and I've identified through my self-body analysis that I have a tendency to lean to the right, or I have lower back symptoms aggravated with leaning to the right, or let's say I have an external rotation tendency of my right hip, where when I walk in my stand, my right foot turns out more than my left. This naturally causes a hip hike, my hip to come up on one side. Perhaps in my analysis, I've also identified standing on one leg that I have a tendency to hip hike or have that hip come up, or it's harder to balance, indicating a weakness in the glute medius. Whatever comes up in your analysis, whatever comes up in your posture and movement tendencies, you want to address that by challenging that problem. So if my lower back is actually aggravated by leaning right, and I have a tendency to hip hike, or let's say externally rotate my leg, or maybe even I have a valgus knee tendency where my knee comes in on that side as opposed to being straight, which contributes to a problem with my hip alignment in my lower back, or I pronate and my foot leans more on the inside edge, I'm going to choose a crosswalk where on that side I have a higher height than the other side. So here my terrain slopes down to my left. I'm going to be walking this way to challenge the body. Remember, if I wanted a passive or assistive exercise, I'd actually walk the other way to drop that right hip down, right? We talked about that last week. But here I'm going to be using the exact opposite direction because I want to challenge my body. The terrain is actually going to try to make my problem worse, and I'm going to resist that. So as I walk, the terrain wants me to lean into that upper side of the hill because naturally I don't want to lean away. I don't want to fall downhill. So reflexively, my body wants to lean in. So I have to work hard. I got to use my stabilizing muscles to hold that rib cage up. Naturally, as I walk with my right side uphill, my right hip wants to hip hike. Again, that's going to aggravate my lower back symptoms. So I'm using this as a challenge for myself now to hold that hip down as I walk. So every time I take a step, I'm thinking rib cage up on that high side and hip down. Okay, that's more of a challenge. I'm going to exert a lot more energy. I'm going to be developing my opposite muscles that hold me from making that mistake, making that mechanical problem that causes lower back symptoms. If I have a tendency to rotate or lean my knee in into a valgus or knock knee position, I'm going to be using this terrain on this side. My knee wants to fall in. My foot wants to pronate down. So I'm using that to resist that. As I walk, I'm holding my inner edge of my heel up. I'm holding my knee out so I keep better alignment. That's strengthening all those muscles that I need. Those are my weakest stabilizing muscles. Those are my weak links in my mechanical chain that are contributing to lower back symptoms. So here I'm choosing a terrain that I'm thinking about it. How do I challenge? How do I strengthen those even more than some of my groundwork exercises that we provide, let's say, in the Walkaway Back Pain book? This is using a challenge to make it even tougher to make those corrections. This winds up strengthening your mechanics and improves lower back symptoms in the long run. From another point of view, let's take a problem such as a spondylolisthesis that's aggravated with extension, or a spinal stenosis that's aggravated with extension. You've determined that your lower back symptoms are worse when you anterior tilt your pelvis, when your tailbone comes up and your pubic bone comes down, or if you lean backwards. That's an extension-driven stress, an extension tendency for lower back pain. So typically, we said that for a passive routine, we want to walk uphill, right? Because that makes the body move more forward from the torso and prevents that extension. But here, I'm going to be actually going downhill because as opposed to just taking a passive or easy way to relieve lower back symptoms. I actually want to strengthen my stabilizing muscles that prevent extension. So here I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to choose to walk downhill, because downhill my tailbone wants to come up. My body has a tendency to lean forward or fall downhill, so the reflex naturally in my body is to lean backwards. So all those things typically are going to aggravate my back pain. But I'm using that as a challenge now to develop the opposite muscles to prevent that from happening. I'm putting myself in a slight harm's direction, but preventing the harmful mechanics by emphasizing a lot of tail under as I walk downhill. That prevents the tendency for the tail to come up. By contracting my abs and bringing my torso slightly forward, which is against the natural reflex of the body to lean backwards. And that is training my body. It makes it harder than, let's say, level groundwork, because now I'm moving against gravity and the normal reflexes of my body to extend. Another example, moving uphill, would be a classic disc problem. Let's say I've determined through my body mechanics that my lower back pain is aggravated with flexion or leaning forward. When I typically walk uphill, my body wants to avoid falling backwards, so the natural reflex of my body is to lean forward. That, though, many times creates more of a forward motion of the torso that can compress the disc. So I want to strengthen my ability to avoid moving forward. I want to strengthen the extensors of my body, the ones that lean me backwards for that type of a mechanical situation that I've identified through my unique analysis of my body. So in this case, I choose uphill walking because here the tendency is for the body to lean backwards and the reflex is to lean forward. So I want to work against or be challenged by that reflex by extending or holding my body up. I want to squeeze my glute muscles as I'm walking uphill. Now there's a assistive part of this also, which is naturally you can use your glutes a lot more on that incline walking uphill. So that's great typically for classic disc problems. But also I'm avoiding that tendency of moving forward as I go uphill or tilting forward from my torso. I'm thinking about keeping my chest tall and back as I walk uphill, which almost is against the natural tendency of the body to move forward to prevent that backwards lean, but this is challenging me to do that and preventing me from going into the typical symptoms that are aggravated with lower back pain caused by the gravitational stresses. So thinking about how you put together your challenge is always based on what your unique mechanics are. If you don't know what your mechanical problems are, go to the painfreeandfit.com website. We have a free body analysis. Check out your body. Go through an analysis or have a rehab expert work with you. You need to determine where your weaknesses are, what stability muscles are not working, what movement tendencies are too great, where your lower back soft tissues are being aggravated on a daily basis. Once you know this, you can integrate this into your walking program. And again, if you're looking to use more walking mechanical corrections and develop a full program, check out the Walkaway Back Pain program available at painfreeandfit.com. It has your full body analysis, all your stretches, all your exercises, groundwork, how to integrate in a walking program, how to design a walking program that's structured uniquely for your mechanics to deliver a pain-free and fit lifestyle. I hope this video on choosing challenges with your walking terrain helps you with your lower back symptoms.